See Brown in your face.
Have you heard of Everything at Once?
Do you know about Everything at Once?
It's internationally known.
Aliens listen to it.
It's the best ever.
If there's something you're looking for in the 814, or feeling a little bored and think there ain't no more, check out Everything at Once and allow it to be your source. It's that raw podcast that's always showing support, highlighting the scene. No need to take I-90 to Peep or 79 to see how it be. Interviewing your locals with mindsets that are global. Innovators and creators on every single upload. So much going on in the EPA.
Incredible content.
Everything at Once will keep you up to date.
Amazing guests.
What you doing? Come through and hang with Tony and Dave.
Community driven.
Bringing everything at once from around the way. Everything at once from around the way. Hey.
Please listen. We love you. Everything at Once.
Everything at Once.
It's time to introduce this show.
The best show on the face of the planet.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in today. We want to thank our Patreon producers, Brian G., Josh W., Ian D., Nick G., and Sadie M.
Patreon, it's an awesome way to support the show and say thanks. You can become a Patreon supporter by clicking the link below and choosing to be an intern, assistant, or producer level supporter.
If being on the production team is too much pressure for you, you can also send any contributions using our Venmo at Everything at Once Studios. We now want to thank all the local businesses who supported this episode. These businesses get the Everything at Once stamp of approval and are critical members of the Everything at Once community. We couldn't do it without them. With winter approaching, are there any last-minute details that you want to change or renovate around your home?
I might, but you know who to call.
Yeah! Ghostbusters!
No, Tony. No, not Ghostbusters. Solid State Construction.
Oh, yeah. Solid State.
Yeah.
Duh. Solid State takes pride in all their home remodeling projects. Solid State specializes in bathroom remodeling, kitchen renovation, window and door installation, custom design work, and more, including painting, flooring, drywall, sidewalk, decks. Get your free quote today by calling Nick at 814-397-7854. Solid people, solid product, Solid State Construction.
You know, Tony, with all these renovations from Solid State, I think we might have kicked up some bad energy around here. Yeah, oh yeah. Luckily, we know just the people to go see.
I know it this time. It's Ghostbusters.
No, Tony! Our friends at Cauldron and Thorne!
Wow. I feel really dumb right now, and I can't believe I didn't think of Cauldron and Thorne, the world's largest witchcraft and metaphysical shop, with everything a person needs to channel the spirit world.
Practice some self-care.
Find enlightenment.
Curse your enemies.
Protect yourself from your enemies.
Bless your friends.
Cleanse your space from negative energies. You can check out all the magical wares available at for these different practices we all love and enjoy at Cauldron and Thorne, 2724 West 8th Street, or online at cauldronandthorne.com.
This week, we have an incredible guest for you. Zevia, it's the fountain of youth, I've heard, in a can. So we'll see. I'll get back to you in about 40 years.
I've been looking into these.
You're either going to be dead or very youthful.
Yeah, I'll look exactly the same.
I've been looking into trying to switch my pop consumption to one of these similar type drinks like Poppy, or there's another one. I've never heard of Zevia before.
0 calories.
I'm not really worried about calories. I'm more worried about filling my body with tons and tons of processed sugar, drinking Coke and Mountain Dew.
Maybe they will sponsor us.
Zevia, you listening?
Yeah, because I'm going to read off the ingredients in a wild turn of events here.
Nobody saw this coming. This is how we're starting the podcast.
But are you ready?
Yeah.
Carbonated water, natural flavors, stevia leaf extract, tartaric acid, caffeine, citric acid. I think that sounds pretty healthy, don't you?
That's not a lot of things.
No.
It's not.
And
I guess
it
the fewer the ingredients.
And it tastes just like
less is more.
delicious.
It tastes just like it. Is that what you're saying? It does taste just like
it does
vanilla Coke?
taste just like vanilla cola with all that bad shit in it. So Zevia people,
Yeah, check it out. And by the way, you owe us $100 for this episode.
100.
And they're now the official sponsors of these gentlemen from Lights+Letters. We got Dave and Sam here. Thank you guys for joining us this afternoon.
Yeah, for sure.
Super excited to have you. Been jamming out all ride home from my work travels today. It's really fun, enjoyable, poppy music, and I like it. I have a thing for like power pop, like a secret closet thing for power pop. Like, I don't know if you guys ever listened to Head Automatica in like the 2000s, but they were like one of my favorite power pop bands of all time, and I'm getting slight reminiscent feelings listening to you guys.
Cool.
To them.
Yeah, there's definitely something about it. Like, I was more like pop punk was like what I grew up like, listening to. Yeah, so like our song "Tell Me," when it goes to like this half feel at the end of the bridge, like every single time we play that song, it's like, dude, that's what's up.
Hell yeah.
Gotta have that little.
That's what I want to do in every song.
Yeah, I mean that's what we did before we actually started writing good songs. Every song basically had like this half feel breakdown.
Love it.
That was just total pop punk or hardcore. vibes.
More songs need breakdowns, not just metal
Couldn't agree.
songs, but like pop punk songs too. And
Yeah.
whenever I hear a song that does have a breakdown, when that hits, it's always just like, it's so good if it's done well. You know what I mean? Gets you moving, gets you excited. You know something else is about to come right afterward. It builds up that suspense, and then you get like a little bell ting, and then everything comes down.
Like sub drop.
Yes.
Classical music needs like breakdowns.
You think so?
Dude, I think it would be sweet.
I think it would be excellent.
Let's make that a thing.
Like a full orchestra, and then all of a sudden, like the cello starts going boom, 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 boom. You know?
Yeah.
Amazing. It would be
sick.
incredible. So, what are some of the influences going back then for the pop punk era when it was in its prime, early 2000s, late 90s?
Oh gosh.
On the spot.
I know
Yeah, on the
I was
spot.
listening to TAT, the local There's Always Tomorrow local band,
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
way back then, and
Yeah.
they were notorious for having breakdowns in all of their songs too,
Yeah.
and it was just great, you know.
Yeah,
Hang out in Forward Hall.
Oh,
Yeah, I was gonna say
yeah,
that was
dude.
my era. It was like every like Thursday or Friday at Forward Hall. Like so
Oh, yeah.
whether it's like Disciple or like we'd get all these crazy bands would come through, like No Innocent Victim, like all these awesome hardcore bands would show up at the Hangout and everything back in the day. So I'd say some more on the hardcore side. What are some of the pop punk bands you listen to? You were a Reliant K guy.
Yeah, Reliant K. I don't know, Warped Tour. The one year, it was just like the best. It was like early Mayday Parade.
Yeah.
All Time Low. Rocket Summer. Not really hardcore breakdown, but
No.
more on the pop side. But
Yeah. Yeah, still. And all those bands are coming back too. That's the thing. Because now we're all starting to get to the age. Like when our parents were like, oh my gosh, Led Zeppelin's going on tour again. We need to go see that. And we're like,
Right.
oh, that's old music. I'm pretty sure that's what our kids
It's
are
the
gonna
new
think when we're
classic
like,
rock.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's
We're like, brand new's going on tour again. We have to
Paramore.
go see that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Did you see the When We Were Young tour a couple years
Exactly.
ago?
That's
like,
exactly
all
it.
these amazing bands. I thought it was fake when I first saw it.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's no way all these people
Yeah.
from my heyday of going to festivals and shows are coming back. This is
Yeah.
impossible.
Or like when Blink-182, like the original, not the original band, but like the most popular
Yeah.
version of the band went back on tour. A bunch of gray-haired folks, you know, just like,
Right.
oh, fucking Blink-182.
Now we're all in our 30s and we're like somewhat established, so we have like money to go to
Yeah, that's
these
true.
kinds of
Yeah.
shows now.
Furnace Fest, that was like the big one they did in like Birmingham or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you didn't have money when you were 18, you got money now when you're 40. So
Right,
let's throw it
exactly.
out.
You can go. It's
Yeah.
not that big of a deal to
Yeah.
throw.
You're not going to go quite as hard in the pit as maybe you would have back then.
Questionable.
Talk-
I don't know.
talk
I
to
got,
this guy.
I have health insurance now, dude. So it's even. It can be
And a
even more-
chiropractor.
right? Yeah. If I do get hurt, there's, I'll go get
Yeah.
straightened out and fixed up and
Yeah.
be good to go in the next
Good
couple
as
days.
new.
I got paid sick leave at work, dude. So if I need to take a couple days off, no big deal because my arm's broken or I have a concussion or the things that happen out there. But it's good. So I was unfamiliar with your band before you had approached me about coming on the show when I was looking for guests a while ago. We scheduled this like a million years ago. And so what are you guys doing that I think feel is different than other bands to like promote and get your name out there?
Yeah, I mean, Erie, it's an interesting music scene, I think, especially right now.
Right.
You know, like, again, like the era that we were talking about, like when we were growing up, there were loads of like really great punk and hardcore bands, like original music.
Sure.
You know, that's not really the scene around here as much. I mean, it's still certainly there. There's definitely a pretty solid metal scene, and
Oh, yeah.
you know, a lot of bands that are doing putting out some great music there. But you know, when we started making more, you know, just kind of like straight alternative rock, maybe a little bit of pop inspired, you know, Brit pop inspired rock and roll music, like there's not really a place for that around here. So for a little while we were kind of like, there's not a place for us to play our music. Like we have been kind of talking a little bit more off and on, like what does it look like to maybe try to put some of that stuff together ourselves. I mean, there's some great there are a lot of other really great pop inspired artists. I mean, Brooke Surgener is a great example. Like her original music is phenomenal.
Fantastic,
she's a friend of
right?
ours, and like you know, so we've been talking like, what would it look like to just start getting some of these bands and artists together who are maybe putting out music that's not exactly in, you know, the vein of what the scene looks like, you know.
Sure.
But yeah, so I guess whenever we have opportunities to jump on, we will, and we're definitely thinking a lot about what it looks like to kind of build some of that up ourselves, or be a part of connecting with other artists or bands who are looking for the same thing around here.
Right. It's really interesting because I feel like there's very established like punk scene here, and the metal scene kind of comes on and off, and I don't really see a lot of, and like we have a good country scene too, country folk scene. You know, we got Josh Travis, we got Northbound Soul,
Tyler Smilo.
Smilo and the Ghost, of course. But I don't see a lot of like indie poppy punk, like pop punk stuff that's a little bit more mainstream around here. And I think there's definitely a place for it. And I think that a lot of audience sharing would benefit not only you but like everybody else around here, you know what I mean? Kind of expand the horizon, so to speak.
I feel like it's just like a byproduct of me getting older and not going to as many shows either. But like when I think of like the punk music, I think of Scotty's, you know, which isn't around anymore.
Right.
But that was like where my brain always went for that type of music. So like when you were talking about that, it really does feel like, you know, it's kind of like a little bit of an outlier compared to the other music around here.
Yeah. A lot of it, I do think, is venues. You know, like there are a lot of other music venues around. I mean, Lavery's, they've got their bunker, and
Sure.
you know, there are some places, but those venues are maybe a little bit tailored to a specific genre. There's not like I don't know, what would be a venue that a band like us would play at, like in another city? You know,
Room
like
33 has some more
Smalls or-
mainstream sounding stuff.
Yeah, yeah, but also a lot of those like restaurants and bars, like there's a very thriving cover band. We both play I'm playing at Room 33 on Saturday with Abby, so like we're both involved in cover acts. That
Sure.
you can
Erie
always
loves
find
that.
gigs
Big
for
bar
that.
like
Yeah.
packs that house every
100%.
night with cover bands.
Yeah, there's definitely a place for that, and that's cool. I mean, that's why we're both a part of those acts too, because anytime we've got an opportunity to play music, which we love, with people that we love to play music with, and just create a good time for people to enjoy themselves, that's cool. Like, that's cool with us. And also, it provides a little extra cash to put towards
Yeah.
at least recording the music we like to, even if we don't get to play it as live as much.
Sure. It's interesting to see how things are coming together and how things are changing around here. And despite us being more connected than ever, I think, in certain ways on social media, I feel like it's a lot harder to stay in the loop as far as our local bands, music, shows all go. And like back in those days when we were going to Forward Hall and the Hangout every week, I feel like I had a good knowledge of not only the bands that were from Erie, but the other bands that were making a name for themselves up in Buffalo or in Ohio or where, you know, down towards Pittsburgh. Whereas now I feel a lot more disconnected to those other markets. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And I also think that it's interesting because I know like back then I would see a bunch of bands that were not big yet, but would be in another 3, 4, 5 years. And I'd be like, oh, dude, I saw them at Hangout when I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't really see that so much anymore.
I think on the flip side, you just see so much more. So it's like back in the day when a band blew up, like, but with social media now, it's like how many bands come across your feed in a day.
Right.
And to
Right.
keep track of them all and like know which ones make it and which ones don't, like,
It's impossible.
yeah.
It's like the people have become the gatekeepers of the music.
Yeah.
You know,
I see
instead
that.
of like, oh, I mean, record industry is definitely, you know, that's when you make it to the next level. But before, you know, like people with any kind of record deals, like that was getting pushed on you with the radio and news, you know, wasn't coming from other people. It was coming from a source that decided what was worth listening to, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting because I mean I remember, speaking of like Forward Hall, like we went and saw Taking Back Sunday at Forward
Sure.
Hall. Like
Yeah.
it was like there were like 300 people in that room. It was like this crazy show. Like they're another example of a band that obviously, I mean they were
Huge
big
now.
then.
Yeah.
But it was different. Like it was like you could be a really successful band and you would want to play in Erie, Pennsylvania. Like,
Yeah.
we just don't have that anymore. Like, you know, we just don't have a music scene that brings that in. But I definitely think there's something about, like Sam was saying, like you would find a band like that would play a show, and you didn't. That might only happen a couple of times a year that you'd come across a band. You're like, dude, I really love this. I'm gonna listen to this band nonstop. Now with social media or Spotify, I mean, I can hit that little DJ button on Spotify.
yeah.
I do that all the time, and it's going to introduce me to new artists constantly. I might get 5 new artists I've never listened to in one day.
Sure.
You know, and we didn't used to have that.
And all the playlists that they've already assembled
Yeah.
for me with the DJ feature added in there. You know, I can make my own playlist with a bunch of artists that I like, and it'll give me other artists that are similar to it. It makes it easy to discover. But the thing is yes, I might listen to those bands, but do I actually like know who they are
Or invested in them.
any of their, like, even their name, like the artist name? Like I might just listen to a song and be like, oh, that was a cool song, and not even know the artist or what the song was called or what album it's from or any of those things that I used to like know and were important to me.
And I feel like, well, from what I understand about the music industry, like it's kind of like a, you know, good and bad, you know, good and evil type thing with Spotify. You get all this access to music, but the artists don't make the money that they used to selling like actual CDs, albums. So maybe that makes it a little tougher for these people to come around and tour as well. You know, they're not making as much money selling their music. So it's harder for them to just get on the road and go
for
to
sure.
these like smaller cities and make it happen.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're going to hit bigger markets. That's
Yeah.
pretty much as far as they'll go. Like, so for us, it's going to Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Buffalo. But
For sure. And they have like the population, like it's like a percentages or a numbers game, you know. 1% of people may have heard this band in Erie, and that equals 100 people, whereas 1% of the population might have heard of them in Pittsburgh, and that's 500 people, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So it's an interesting dynamic, but I feel like more bands actually, because of that, are forced to tour more because they're not making money off of record sales anymore. You're
Yeah,
making
for
money
sure.
from playing shows and selling out shows and traveling around and diversifying their audience or dispersing their audience across the country.
Yeah, you're a
Yeah, we've
t-shirt,
talked
you're a t-shirt salesman
Oh,
with like
t-shirts for
with like an
sure.
hour-long sales pitch,
Yeah. No,
which is
for
your
sure.
music.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot. I mean, with Spotify, like, I mean, and it's just, it felt more organic to be able to, you know, I was a part of different bands, you know, kind of in that era too. Like, so you'd play a show and you'd be able to reach people, you'd be able to engage with people, you would be able to make a little bit of money either from the show or from your merch. Like now with so much being focused on Spotify, you know, like you mentioned our song Tell Me, it's got most streams out of other songs, and that's just because it hit one playlist. But I think out of that, we've made like $40. Like that song cost us like $1,000 to record. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like
yeah.
we are just constantly in the red. Like it's a terrible business model for at least bands like us, like to not be able to get out there on the road. And now we're at that stage of life too. Like we've all got families. All 3 of us have kids.
Yeah, you're not
We've got
going on a
careers.
2-month tour
No.
across the East Coast. Yeah,
Yeah, as much as maybe we'd love to sometimes.
Sometimes.
sometimes. For sure. It definitely brings positives and negatives to the table for sure. And I think that having the expectation that you're going to make a lot of money in any of these artistic ventures, whether it's music or podcasting or making videos or whatever you're doing, is really a high goal. You know what I mean? Like, if you make enough money to sustain yourself and, like, not come out of pocket for your stuff, you're doing, like, pretty freaking well.
Yeah.
In a lot of
The
cases.
goal isn't ever to make the money. It's to write the songs. And,
and have fun, chill with your boys, make music.
Yeah,
exactly.
and create something and leave something.
Right. And if the success comes, that's just an added bonus.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we've got a lot of friends who have been fortunate to do that and still they've made a career out of playing music. For us, it's kind of like, I don't know. I know lots of guys who spend a ton of money, thousands of dollars a year on golfing or hunting or other hobbies. For us, we're like, let's find like a dope studio in Nashville that's got gear that we will never be able to afford. Do you know what I mean? Like, and just this unlimited backline, and we're like, how much is that? $1,500 for a day? Let's do it. Like, I know guys who spend that on one hunting season. I'm like, if it means that we get to record in a really cool environment with each other. In Nashville, we work with a friend that I grew up with. So I've known this dude since we were like in middle school. He's doing his thing in Nashville, like, so he'll produce. Or when we were down there last time, he's like, I want to record with you guys in this studio just because it's a super, like, he lives there. He records in some of the best studios in Nashville. He's like, this is a great studio. I've never been able to just sit down and play bass and just kind of like relax. Like, so he's like, I'll just do that with you guys. So like having that experience is totally worth it for us. If that song gets 100 streams, whatever. I mean, it's a song we're proud of. Right. Our moms like it. Our kids like it.
Hell yeah,
we like
dude.
it.
Hell yeah. No, it's really, there's a lot of value in just having a good time and spending your money on things that you like, you know what I mean? And I think that trying to commodify, because early on when I started this podcast, I was like trying to commodify our success through being able to buy new investments, you know what I mean? Like a camera or a mixer, the microphones, whatever it was, it's like, oh, this is gonna, make it better and pay for itself eventually and all these other things, when really it's so much more just about enjoying the experience of, unpacking a new mixer and hooking it up and figuring it out and recording some stuff on it and learning how to play piano and doing other things like that are just enjoyable and not having to worry about or stress about, like, oh my God, I've just spent $2,000 on a new DSLR camera, and what am I going to do with it? How will I ever financially recover from this, when really it's fine,
But if it's not fine, if it ends up being a little bit too much money, we have guests comes down and play some high stakes poker. Let's just say that the house does very well here.
35th Street always wins. It's true, and I mean, it's not all about that. It's never learning that it's not all about the money is one of the greatest things that having a podcast, I think, has taught me in general. You know what I mean? And just to enjoy it and not worry about having to make good financial decisions all the time, because at the end of the day, it's gonna be all right.
Well, I think the coolest thing, like, and being musicians and connecting with crowds and meeting other people that make music, like the podcast for Tony and I, we both agree on this. It's like, it's so cool meeting new people and making connections and, holding these conversations. Like, that's my favorite part of this.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. And making movies, that's my new favorite thing.
I like making movies too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's a good time. And I think that doing it in small doses like you are by releasing one song is a great way to do it too. Instead of trying to put up some big lofty goal like making a whole full-length album in one go is just it's a lot.
It's a lot of logistics too.
Yeah.
We don't have the time to.
We've talked about it.
Yeah, we're probably sitting on enough for
a full-length album.
Yeah, most of the way there, but
you didn't record it all in one go.
No, they kind of came in batches.
Right.
Like, yeah.
There's a photographer that I follow. And this is a sentiment lots of other creatives have said, but he was just talking a little bit about real, like an artist is someone who, if they created a work of art and nobody ever saw it, they would still continue to create.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, so I think that's kind of where we're
Who's
at.
the photographer?
That was Jeremy Cowart. He's a photographer in Nashville I follow. But like, he was just talking about that, kind of that concept. And I think that's kind of for us, honestly. I know it kind of might sound weird, but it, in relation to like so many other artists who do have a specific goal, which is awesome. Like, run after that.
Do it.
And if you've got the time and money and energy to do that, and you're in a stage of life where you can just hit the road and play for 10 people, play for 10,000 people, like whatever it is, that's great. I think for us, like, we want to write songs that we're proud of creatively, and we want to write songs that mean something to each of us. But we also write songs, we try to write songs in a way that can leave space for it to mean something different to other people. Like, we've had people message us and like, this song meant so much. Like, it's so cool that you wrote a song about this. And we're like, yeah, that's totally
That's
what
what
it's
it's
about.
about.
Like, we're like, that's not what it wasn't about at all, when we were writing it. But that's a really cool thing about, art and how it can be interpreted by other people.
Sure. I agree. And I've shared that same sentiment many times on this show, that like leaving that bit of ambivalence for people to create whatever storyline they want within your art is something that's really beautiful and really what makes art what it is.
Yeah. And Sam's a good person for that. There's so many songs where I'm like writing this thing and he's like, what's this song about? I'm like, it's a breakup song. And he's like, what if it's not though? Like, what if we kind of take some of that specific language out so that somebody might interpret it like that? It might be actually having to separate from a relationship with another person. But maybe it could be a song about having to separate from something like inside yourself, you know what I mean? Or like reevaluate your relationship with yourself or something you've got in your life, so it's been good. I mean, we try to keep enough songs more obvious about what it's about, but find that balance and leave enough space in other songs or parts of songs where people can take that on into their own space.
sure.
So
Making it a song about nothing or about a lot of things versus something that's very specific is its own careful balance.
Yeah.
For sure.
You know what else is songs with names in them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like where you're going with
Yeah.
this one.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Tell me more. No, you
Have you
tell.
heard any of those lately?
No, you tell me more.
And that's literally how that song came out. We're like, let's write a song
100%.
with a name.
Yeah.
That was our Mad Lib boundary to work within.
Yeah.
And so we wrote Olivia.
Yeah, and that's a good example of a song that is a little bit more specific about a relationship because it literally mentions a person in it. But
How'd you guys come up with the name Olivia?
Yeah.
It's the right amount of syllables.
maybe, yeah.
Well, there's not a lot of Olivias out there, so Olivia could be anyone. You know what I mean? I don't know an Olivia.
We gave ourselves,
Which isn't helping us in the trending area.
well, it's
Damn algorithm.
yeah, we did give ourselves some parameters because a lot of our songs, even if they are a little bit more ambiguous in what they're specifically about, they definitely have an undertone of addressing tension, and challenge in life. And that's something that a lot of our music has always been about, is being able to acknowledge that there are going to be things that we're all going to struggle with, and it's okay to say that out loud. You know what I mean? And so, and kind of give a little bit of language to these feelings. I think that's when we look at songs or other artists that have really stood the test of time and resonated with people, that's usually what it's about. It's like, oh, I can actually see myself in this song or this situation in this song. So, and a lot of those have been more on the challenge and struggle side. We're really getting pretty good at writing like the happiest sounding
Sad song.
sad songs.
Yeah.
Like we've got some that we recorded in Nashville. We've got one in particular, and that's what multiple people have said when they've heard the rough mix is like, this is the happiest sounding Screw You song I've ever heard in my entire life. I'm like, nailed it. That's what we want.
Good.
So we gave ourselves some parameters where we said we want to write like, it has to be a positive song, and we wanted to use a girl's name because we're like, so many good songs have this name. And so then we went through some names, and some of it was a little bit of a syllable lineup. We're like, yeah, Olivia. I'm like, I don't know really any Olivias. None of us, because the other thing was like, we didn't want to stir up any drama.
Right, yeah, for
you know,
sure.
being like, "Ooh, this song's about this girl that Sam knows," and then Sam's wife's like, "What now?" So,
Yeah, don't need that for sure.
so we picked Olivia. There are a few other songs, Olivia. I mean, John Mayer's got a song about Olivia.
Yeah.
One Direction, I think, has a song about Olivia. Those guys.
I've met a few Olivias back in the day too, but I don't know any personally at this time.
Yeah.
You know,
I have a niece who's Olivia, she's like 5 years old, so obviously the song is not about her. So we picked that. And then after we wrote the song, I'm like, oh, no, I have an Olivia on the team that I manage at my job. And I'm like, so this didn't pan out.
She's like, this is about me.
I'm like, I swear it's not.
I was listening to the mix like on the drive into work that day, and the staff I had coming in for the day, I was like listening on the computer, and she came in, and her name was Olivia. And luckily, I wasn't listening to it when she came in because I'm like, it's be really weird that we just released a song about you.
yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, it was a cool like exercise for us, you know, and to kind of take things. And there's still some ambiguity in there. I mean, we have a specific picture in my head. I'm not even going to say it on this podcast what our storyline is for that song, because there is a specific picture in our head, and there's language that if like I were to describe, like, what is this guy doing in his life that's leading him to feel so far away and want to be found by this person and find himself in this person. But so we did kind of still leave some of that ambiguity, but we always have sort of a picture in our head, but we just want to be a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll have like a 3-hour conversation on the character, and then the lyrics are like, whoa, whoa, ooh.
Yeah, exactly.
But
That's
the backstory is
Yeah, the backstory is there.
Yeah.
man.
That reminds me of like a one of the old school overdubbed like martial arts movies.
Yeah,
It's like an hour long, like, you know, and then it's just like wow, wow, wow.
Yeah, it was fun. And that was another, honestly, the interesting thing is it's one of my favorite songs that we've done, but it was probably one of the more stressful recording sessions we've had.
really.
Because we also wanted it to kind of feel like more organic. So, you know, we were testing out ways of doing that. And so like we didn't really rehearse it much before we went to record it. And then we went down there, and it was like one of those, I mean, there were definitely some moments where, me at least, just being my personality, where it's like, oh, I don't know.
We didn't even know if it was in the right key.
Yeah,
Like, we
didn't know
did
if it was
the
in right
2 days
key.
of tracking, and then you went in for vocals, and we're like,
And I was like,
hope this
is
works.
high. Yeah, I hope this works. Yeah, I mean, there was just a little bit of that, but I think that was also great for us. It was interesting because we kind of put these parameters around the song, but we didn't even realize that we kind of went into the space to actually kind of, you know, to record this song, but experience something new between all of us. I mean, there was a point, I remember I was just being such a freaking punk. I was sitting there sitting there in this chair, and these guys come in, and Sam was doing guitar. I was just being such a freaking baby, like, because I was just like, oh, I don't know, like I heard it in my head this way, but I don't think it's that, you know what I mean? And it was like, Sam was like, what do you want me to do? I was like, I don't know. Like, it was just, you know, it turned into this like a little bit of a tense
Scene
moment.
from The Notebook.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you want?
I don't know.
Yeah, it turned into this like awkward moment. And then our drummer, Dan, who is like the most chill, loving, kind dude. Like, he's just trying to like chill everybody out. He's like rubbing my shoulder. He's like talking to Sam, like just trying to chill it out, you know. But then in the end of the day, like once I could get past myself and kind of what I was hearing and be like, hey, listen, let's lean into whatever. This is a different process. When we go to Nashville, it's like we know every single part before we get down there for the most part. And it's a different recording process. This one, we were trying to just try things out as we were recording it. So it was good. I was like, all right, cool. Stop being a punk. Lean into it. You're playing music with dudes that you love. This is a cool song. Let's just try and get the best out of it, you know, which was cool. And it ended up really great. It ended up better than whatever it was that I was trying to hear in my head.
I think that's a serious problem for many artists out there, and something that I've dealt with myself is looking back at my work and then being like, is this really what I'm trying to achieve here? Is this really what I want? How do I change it to make it into what I want? And I think that's just like a part of being an artist, you know what I mean? And trying to make the best thing that you could possibly make at any given moment.
Well, I think with music in general, like it's they call it records, and it's a record of where you are at that time. So like you're never going to get there, you know, and from record to record, it's going to be different. So you're just recording where you are. But
yeah, for sure. I mean, we've even acknowledged it. Like, we've had a certain aesthetic in some of our photography and stuff on social media. We're like, thanks to Taylor Swift, now everything is an era.
Right.
So we're just kind of like, can we leave our neon era and move into whatever this is now? You know, like our first EP with Tell Me and everything, we recorded that in Nashville. And it just had this very clean, polished sound. That was largely in part with the fact that we had 4 songs we wanted to record in like 2 days, which is a lot. So you really have to have it very
down
ready
for
to
those
go.
2 days. Yeah, sun up to sundown, recording nonstop.
Yeah, exactly. So, and now we're just trying to be a little bit more organic with it, you know, even in our sounds. And it's cool, like recording at the studio we've been for the last few, because it's definitely a little bit of a different vibe.
yeah,
You know, just leaning into that has been fun.
I like that idea. I mean, I think like the recording quality of your guys' songs and the production quality is super high level.
Nice.
You know what I mean? It sounds amazing, and it's all very well put together. And I can, as a person who's been to a few different recording studios and listened to a lot of people's stuff, it definitely sounds very professional and very well orchestrated. And I think that, like, if you were trying to describe that sound and the organicness that you're trying to achieve, what does that look like to you? Are you looking for more, like, less perfection, less studio production, and more organic, natural feel? Or
I think we swing pretty wide on that. Like,
We do.
I mean, what you were saying about, like, you know, going into a studio and multi-tracking everything and everything's clean. And then last time we went to Nashville, we went to this other studio and we recorded a song live around one mic.
oh, nice, yeah.
And so it was like, you know, me playing acoustic, we had our friend playing upright bass, and then Dave and Dan were singing, and we listened back and we're like, oh, Dan's too quiet, move closer to the mic and do it again.
Yeah.
So it was like, for us, like, as organic as we had been to that point. I think you finished the song that morning in the hotel or the day before. So it's not, we haven't found like a formula that we use, you know, it's kind of where we're at.
I think that's really cool that you guys are experimenting with different recording techniques, because you can definitely multi-track it out, and you could do like one instrument at a time, or you can all play simultaneously in different rooms, or you can all stand around one really fancy condenser mic and try to balance it out by moving people closer and further towards it if you're in like a nice room for it. And the room's going to have an effect too. Are you in a smaller studio room like this, or are you in a big giant barn with wood and carpets and soundboard all over the place, you know? So it's all going to have its own little effects. And I think it's cool that you guys are experimenting in that way with how you're recording to get different sounds, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. That was super fun. We're excited to put that one out. I think the big thing so like with my career, I've been a graphic designer for 20 years. Like, so I think in terms of brand and like that, everything that happens feels like it's a part of the same thing. So that's been one thing that we've been kind of thinking about, because like when you hear that song that Sam was describing, and even we recorded 2 songs in that same studio, where the studio is like part owned by some guys who are part of like a pretty popular Americana act. And so the studio is set up for that vibe, like really raw. I mean, the guy who was playing bass is like one of the owners of the studio, I think, and he was, you know, essentially producing it. Like, he comes from that space, so he's like, no, we're gonna the other song that we did, we recorded almost entirely live, you know, at the same time, which we had not done before, and then we went through and minimally overdubbed. Like, when we go to Nashville, we'll do a scratch track all together. Even in Pittsburgh, like, we'll do the scratch track together, and then we'll pretty heavily overdub things, which is probably still the most common way of recording.
Yeah.
But yeah, totally different approach. And the songs sound and feel and have like a different energy. Like, things are a little loose. Like, we didn't, the other song that we recorded at this like more raw studio, like, it didn't have a click track. Like, other studios, we just constantly hear in our ears, and that's what we play to the whole time. This one, we did it to give us the initial tempo, and then it stopped, and we just vibed with it. That like freaks me out, but it was a totally different energy that feels more raw. And so from a brand perspective, we're like, how does this song fit with like Tell Me, which is very polished, very gridded, you know? But at the end of the day, who freaking cares? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, if we like it and that's where we're at now, like Sam said, that's a snapshot of who we are today. Next year or later on in the future, it might be completely different. It might be like a techno act.
Yeah. I also think that, like, because that's something that I've kind of struggled with throughout having, like, Everything at Once Studios. You know, what is our brand identity and how has that... I don't look at it as, like, I'm not on brand, but more that the brand is still developing or changing. You know what I mean? Or finding itself until one day, hopefully, we have, like, a set thing. Like, this is our look. This is how we do stuff. I feel like even with my photography, I feel like I have a few different looks or styles that I go with. You know what I mean? I have a few presets that I've created that I really like that I use on a lot of different photos, and I'll change them from photo to photo a little bit, but they all kind of generally have that same aesthetic to it. But there's not just one look, you know what I mean? It's an ever developing, ever changing process.
Now, this is a question both ways. So, like, for you guys, say, because you just mentioned techno, but, like, say, like, you were just feeling silly, goofy in the studio, and you're like, let's make, like, a techno-sounding song just to fuck around. Or or we're working on something, and it's just something we never, ever do just to do something fucking stupid. But that's the breakthrough. Do you become a techno band? Like, do we just start doing, like...
Bird Noises, Andre 3000 album.
Yeah, right. Do we just start doing just weird avant-garde stuff? Like, that's like the type of... I think about... I like history, and I like learning about music and songs that are made as, like, throwaways or as, like, joke songs. Like, the one that comes to mind is Werewolves of London. Like, Warren Zevon, like, he just made that song just as a total goof, and it was his biggest hit. Like, so you go techno just to be funny, and it blows
You're
up.
Headlining, like, Tomorrowland.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Are you like, no, we have our identity, we don't really like that, or are you like, we're a techno band?
We're a techno band now.
We'll let you know when we get there.
Or I guess my response then would be, is there a third option where that is the brand? Like the brand is, we're just kind of
Everything at Once.
wherever, exactly. We're just kind of like whatever it is, like is what it is kind of thing. We don't have to think about branding in like a corporate sense, like Zevia, which is a crisp, zero sugar cola. We don't have to think about it like corporate identity where the strength is in the consistency every single time, so that when someone walks into Wegmans, they're like, "There's my Zevia." Like we don't necessarily need that. I mean,
But
there's definitely some benefit to that, but
if like I hear a song on, I guess not the radio, that's antiquated. Like if I hear a song on Spotify and it's like got like Daft Punk vibes, like your guys are giving me Daft Punk vibes, so I'm like, I'm gonna buy a ticket to this concert. This is the only song I know. It's huge. And then you walk out in like rhinestone shirts and 12 songs. You sound like Garth Brooks, and then you play your Daft Punk song. I'd be like, what the fuck did I just spend my money on?
that's true. I mean, that's the chance you got to take, I guess, with going that route.
We'll
But
cross that bridge when we get there.
Right.
And you don't have to take those chances with Zevia, which is gluten-free and vegan, and it always will be.
Yeah. No, I agree in some ways, and I think that generally I'm just trying to explore and have fun. Like we've made a couple parody songs, and like that is part of our, I don't know, our shtick at this point. Now that we've done a few, at least two, but I'm literally like in the process of setting up a day with some sound healing girls to come out and play crystal bowls and bang on rattles and make weird ambient fun stuff with bowls and organ tracks and all sorts of weird things. So it's really just more about the journey and the adventure and having a good time and doing what I want to do rather than trying to do what's on brand, you know what I mean? Or stick to or limit myself in my creative desires, you know what I mean?
It's always an interesting thing that I ask. Not every musician we have on, but a lot of the bands, like, it's good to have that idea and want that autonomy, but it's real easy to second guess it if you get that hypothetical big check put in your face.
Yeah, sure.
Because money does do a lot of talking.
Yeah. Well, I think too, like we listen, like Coldplay is a big influence, I think, for us. They're super mainstream. But
Sure.
like, I grew up playing, like wanting nothing more than to be a classical pianist. Like that's what I studied, like really, really intensely until I became a teenager and had this like realization that no girl would be interested in a guy who wanted to be a classical pianist. I know they ruin everything. But then, but piano was like my main instrument, So then, like early 2000s, Coldplay rolls around. They got this dude who's like playing the upright piano. You're like, what? But they're a really good example, and I think they showed it in a documentary, didn't they? With what's his face, that producer they were working on, where they had sort of like they sort of define like what a Coldplay song is, and they have it kind of like as long as the song checks off all of these boxes, even if everything else about it completely changes up, it's still a Coldplay song. So I think we still have that. We have kind of identified like a number of things that even if the vibe is different from this song to that song, at the end of the day, you can still kind of sense some elements that make it feel like us, whether that's lyrical, musical. So.
I think that there's something about like high-skilled musicians that their music really can transcend into any genre that you want, because I keep seeing this. Well, I've been seeing this TikTok guy for a while who plays a piano, who has like the whole front face off of it, and he just goes like absolutely insane. Plays like some of the most technical, beautiful. It sounds like if he was not singing and didn't have a drum track, like it would be classical piano. You know what I mean? But I think being able to bring that into different genres by changing the surrounding elements can really just elevate the whole song. You know what I mean? Like you can have classic piano and throw it behind a drum and bass track and some funky ass bass and have something entirely different than the classic piano that started everything out.
And throw a breakdown in the middle of it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
take it to a new place.
Right, and some dubstep loud wubs throughout the whole thing. But I think that musicianship really transcends genres in a lot of cases, is what I'm trying to say, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And that's been a challenge for us, like trying to learn and grow as songwriters. Like I heard from a songwriter who kind of acknowledged that being a really good I'm not saying that we're like these great musicians. Sam's an amazing musician. Dan,
You guys are all really good.
I
Music
hack
sounds
my
great.
way through it. But that sometimes that can almost get in the way of songwriting. Like Sam and I have been doing music together in different capacities since we were kids, basically. So I think there was a lot of it. Like we would hear a song in its final version in our heads, and that's what we were going after. And we would get really stuck in like the musicality of it, like this guitar tone, these harmonies, this part, that part. And then I think, fortunately, we had a lot of influences who kind of changed our perspective on songwriting. Like, just write the good song, figure out how it's actually going to sound and come to life later, and how elements like that harmony, like those tones, like that vibe are going to help support the song. But if at the end of the day you strip all of that away and it's just me and a piano or me and Sam on a guitar, it's still a killer song. That can still move somebody, so that's what we've been going after lately, is we try and force ourselves, because sometimes it's really easy, like, and then this guitar part comes in, we're like, no, we haven't even finished it yet, so we have to sometimes push the musicianship off to the side a little bit.
And I think that having like a high level of post production influence can almost detract from a song in certain ways. Like there's something special about a bunch of guys just recording a track around one mic and keeping it really organic versus a super polished song with harmonies and all sorts of vocal tracks that you don't even really hear unless you're like really trying to catch it. And those sound great.
Yeah.
Like when you notice somebody with that kind of production value in their song, it can be amazing. But it's also something special and something authentic and something closer, maybe not closer to the soul, but something that touches me personally about just like something really simple and 4 chords on a guitar and a bass and a really easy drum track that without any of that post-production, punch-ups in the chorus or harmonizing the guitars or adding extra vocal tracks, that is just really special and can be equally moving as a song with all of the extra stuff.
I'm just getting flashbacks of watching the Get Back documentary and just like how I'm not a musician, but after watching that, like, because that's exactly what they were trying to go for with Let It Be. And God, I was like, these motherfuckers make it not appealing.
Yeah.
Like they were, they'd been a band touring the world for like 9 years at that point, but they looked like they were ready to kill each
It's
other.
no surprise they broke up.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know that. I love these dudes. I'm cool with like 8 hours here. You know what I mean? That's just because, it is a lot. It does take a lot out of you physically and
Well, you're
mentally.
invested too. Like
Yeah.
you're bringing your whole life of experience with that, and you're trying to create something, and then you got someone coming at it 30 degrees different angle than when you're coming, and I think that's where the beauty is. If you make it through that collaboration is what makes it cool, that it's not the original vision of whoever, but we don't want to Yoko it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, just Dan laying on the floor, just yelling, rolling around with a microphone. Like, no, man, I don't know if that's the vibe.
Right.
But
I'm just getting like flashbacks of early around Christmas time when I got a bunch of new gear. I went over to see my friend Brian Glosky, and he was to get like a little bit of rundown of what I'm getting myself into by trying to record more songs and getting more stuff. And there's he does a lot of recordings for a lot of the local bands around here, and I'm looking at like a 40 track Pro Tools thing, and we're going through each track, and I play it all together, and then he starts playing it track by track, and I'm like not even noticing half of the stuff that he's adding into these vocal lines or into these guitars, these different harmonies that are coming together until like they're separated out. You know what I mean? But when it's all together, it just sounds like amazing. And then after you've heard it separated out, now you're hearing it at like a whole new depth. You know what I mean? Yeah. And just the whole recording experience really has made me look at music entirely differently and with a whole new ear, because now I'm trying to notice, do they have like small little vocal lines within the chorus that add to the longer sounding parts? It's fascinating, very fun stuff.
Yeah, we've got a song, Heartbeat, that was on our first EP. And it's like one of my favorite songs to do and to play live, especially the end. It starts off really down and chill, and it's got a pretty cool, like, let it rip kind of vocal moment when it's still really intimate, and then it just kind of builds up to this big half-feel thing like we were talking about, like this big epic sort of ending. But there are some parts on there, like we really... Again, some of this trust just came from the personal relationship with the friend of mine who was doing the production on that. And so we sort of we recorded as much as we could in Nashville, and then we sort of left it in his hands, And then it was always like this Christmas morning moment when we get a text and said, hey, check this out, this rough mix, and we listened to it. But even then, we went through this whole process. We finished the mix, we got it mastered, put it out. And then we do, for some auxiliary instruments, we'll use some playback when we play live. So we had them send us those stems, and we're going through listening to it, and there's this percussive, this thing that's happening. I'm like, I did not even know that was in there until I got that stem. Yeah. And now every time we play that song live, I just get even now, I just get these little goosebumps, because it's just one of those things. Once you hear that, you're like, man, that's so cool. None of these people know that that's even happening right now, but it definitely, you take it away, and you're like, it loses that vibe, which has been pretty cool.
Right. I think that's really interesting too, to have those kinds of things that a lot of people will not really notice, but it is something that you can pick up on, something that you see in the mix that may be lost to a lot of people, but it's there and it's important and special to you, and adds that little bit of extra value. I worked really hard on this. We did things that people aren't even going to recognize the value in or really even hear, but it adds to the song in a way that subconsciously gives it, that extra little spark or whatever it is, that little neuron that fires in my brain that makes me feel good. You
Well,
know
that's
what
the
I mean?
whole song. I mean, we put something out and we're like, we did this for us. You know, if anyone else hears it, that's great and that's cool. But like, this is for us and we dig it. You know, so.
And I know I made the joke before that our moms and kids like our music. I mean, they do. But I also don't want to minimize the fact that there have been like a number of people who really
Sure.
do enjoy listening to our music. When Olivia just came out last month, I mean, I'd get lots of text message, lots of Instagram messages, you know, of people just being like, man, this song's super cool. Like, so I don't want to minimize that
Yes.
for anybody.
Thank you, everybody that
For anybody watching this,
Yeah.
I mean, but so
There's
that's
two
been-
of
that's
us
been
right here. We both enjoy the song.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, it might not be a million people, but honestly, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I love like playing a small event somewhere and just seeing somebody show up, and maybe they brought somebody else who then was like, yeah, that music was really cool. I mean, that's just fine with me
Right.
at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think that as I've gotten older, I've learned to appreciate those smaller, more intimate moments a lot more too than the giant crowds of 500 or 25,000 people at a huge show. You know what I mean? There's something special about, you know, 100 people or 30 people or 20 people or 5 people or however many. You know what I mean?
That's what I love about even the way that we play live. Like, I turn my keyboard facing toward the center of the stage and play relatively sideways to everybody. But I do that partly, I mean, or really mostly so I can split my time between acknowledging people out there, but then also I sit here and I see Sam and I see Dan, because that's really the most important thing, you know? I'm super pumped about us playing at Discover Presque Isle just because we haven't played live together in a while, and just to be able to have that moment on stage with two dudes I love just hanging with and making music. If there's 10 people or 100, like, that doesn't really matter to me at the end of the day. So.
Yeah, it's amazing. You guys are making some really sweet music, and I appreciate the way that you're going about doing all these things. And it really shows the amount of time and effort and heart and soul that you guys are putting into this, I think.
Thanks.
So thank you guys so much for doing what you're doing
Yeah.
and coming out today, kicking with us for a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. It's been fun.
Make sure you check out Olivia. Check out all their songs. Tell me all the songs out there. There's going to be a new one coming out soon. See them at Discover Presque Isle, Lights+Letters on Instagram.
Yeah.
Are you on the
Yeah.
other socials too?
We're on the other socials. We're playing, Discover Presque Isle is July 27th. I think we're playing at like 1:30 in the afternoon. So it'll be super
Excellent.
fun.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Hit all those likes, those follows, those subscribes. Check them out on Spotify. Thanks to all our sponsors and all the people that tuned in. Without you guys, this would not be possible. Y'all are the best. Peace out.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.